Hello, I'm Bud McCord. I'm here in Brazil, South America. Welcome to Food for Thought, Thinking with Jesus. Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. And the Apostle Paul said in 1 Corinthians chapter 2, we have the mind of Christ. So let's think with Jesus. Let's think with Jesus about risk and love. Risk and love. Let me read the devotional for today. And then we'll think together about what it means to love and take the risk to love. September 16th. Then Jesus was led up by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. Matthew 4:1. Everything Jesus said and did while living among us involved risk. Jesus did not get a pass on the risk of being human and loving in this world. Jesus, as a human being, had to make real choices that involved enormous risk to himself and to the human race. Jesus' temptations while loving us were real and risky. To love in a fallen world is to take a risk. I loved watching all my children compete in sports. Not all of them loved to compete, but I loved to watch them in action. I remember telling them, if you're going to make a mistake while playing in a game, risk making a big mistake because you were trying so hard to get it right. Everything Jesus did was done while running the risk of having his love proven wrong or weak. He took this risk on purpose, and he took it as a human being, not as a divine being who didn't have to face the temptations we face when we love. Jesus entered the battle for the future of humanity as a man in whom the Father was living. He risked making earth-shattering mistakes, and I believe the risk was real for him as it is for us. Jesus did not get a pass on taking love's risks. Jesus had to get every detail of love right so he could truthfully say, "He who has seen me has seen the Father." Take the risk to love. The Father's love will be seen in this world through you. The thing I want to talk about today is a kind of a mistake we can make if we're not careful. We think that Jesus used superpowers that are not available to us in our activity of loving and being disciples here in this world. We sometimes think of Jesus like people today will think of a superhero, but that's not the way that he was treated in this world. I want to read to you from Matthew chapter 3, beginning in verse 16, about the baptism of Jesus. And then I want to read about the temptation of Jesus. And I want to show you the contrast between the Father's opinion of Jesus and how well pleased he was with Jesus. But the way that Jesus had to live in this world is really starkly different. Here's the part about his baptism. When he had been baptized, Jesus came up immediately from the water, and behold, the heavens were opened to him, and he saw the Spirit of God descending like a dove and alighting upon him. And suddenly a voice came from heaven saying, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased." You see the positive nature, the affirmative nature of God's opinion of his Son, okay? It goes right on to chapter 4, and watch the shift. Then Jesus was led up by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. And when he had fasted 40 days and 40 nights, afterward he was hungry. Now, when the tempter came to him, he said, "If you are the Son of God, command that these stones become bread." But he answered, "It is written, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God." Then the devil took him up into the holy city, set him on a pinnacle of the temple, and said to him, "If you are the Son of God, throw yourself down, for it is written, he shall give his angels charge over you, and in their hands they shall bear you up, lest you dash your foot against a stone." Jesus said to him, "It is written, you shall not tempt the Lord your God." Again the devil took him up on an exceedingly high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their glory. And he said to him, "All these things I will give to you if you will fall down and worship me." Then Jesus said to him, "Away with you, Satan, for it is written, you shall worship the Lord your God, and him only you shall serve." Then the devil left him, and behold, angels came and ministered to him. Hardly the treatment one would expect, coming right off the words from heaven, "This is my beloved Son in whom I am well pleased." What we have to understand is Jesus is not only the Son of God, the Holy One of God in his divinity, his humanity also was the clothing that he had to live with and to use in this world. He became flesh and dwelt among us. It's really interesting when we understand that Jesus is not a superhero. Jesus is humanity. He is the last Adam. He represents us. And as our representative, he must deal with the exact same world that we deal with. He has to go through exactly the same temptations that we go through. There is a passage in the book of Hebrews that really makes this really, really clear. It says this, seeing then that we have a great high priest who has passed through the heavens, Jesus, the Son of God, let us hold fast our confession. For we do not have a high priest who cannot sympathize with our weaknesses, but was in all points tempted as we are, yet without sin. Let us therefore come boldly to the throne of grace, that we may obtain mercy and find grace to help in time of need. You see how Jesus is not given a pass on what it means to experience the pain one feels, or the resistance one feels, or the reaction one feels when someone is in this world that lies in the evil one, and we love in the company of the Father, and we love because Christ is in us. We will experience what he experienced what we will experience. Once in a while in your lifetime, you get an opportunity to actually watch theology in action. You watch a sermon in action. I had the privilege nearly 28 years ago, I think it is now, about 28 years ago, to watch a dear pastor, missionary friend of mine go through two very different experiences. And it happened at First Baptist Church, West Hollywood in Hollywood, Florida, many, many years ago when I was the pastor there. I want to talk to you about Chuck Doan, a dear friend of mine from high school on through Bible college. He and his wife, Kathy, and their 3 sons were missionaries in South Korea, beginning in the 1970s through the 1980s. And he was a great missionary. He was a wonderful preacher, a wonderful man, very highly respected. When I became pastor at First Baptist of West Hollywood, we had a house there on the property of the church that was set up for missionaries to use when they were on furlough. They would be 4 years on the field and then 1 year off the field. And our church had a passion for missions under its founding pastor and its second pastor, and I was the third pastor. And so this thing was a real commitment to missionaries. And so Chuck contacted us and he requested that he could live in our house for missionaries for 1 year. And we were so excited they were coming. And they came and set up a household in that house. And the boys went to our school, the Christian school. Well, right after they got back and we were connecting everything again with them, Chuck called me one day and he said that he had a problem. He couldn't hold the pen in his hand, that he couldn't write correctly anymore. And he was having some headaches. And so he went to the doctor and they discovered that he had a brain tumor. And he contacted me, and we knew that he was going to have a biopsy, and we knew that by itself was going to be dangerous. And Chuck was such a respected man across the United States among the churches that I think it was about 13 or 14 pastors flew in just for the biopsy to pray over him. We anointed him with oil. We prayed for him. And these pastors, we were all there, and it was really an amazing thing to see the support that Chuck and Kathy were receiving. Well, the result of the biopsy was it was cancer. And so they began the preparations for a surgery. But before the surgery could take place, they tried to locate the tumor again, and they could not find the tumor again. It just disappeared. And we were just thinking, we saw a miracle. We saw God answer our prayers. And it really was an answer to prayer. So you can imagine that everybody was on this mountaintop saw God answer this prayer. So they returned to the mission field. Chuck and Kathy and the boys returned to the mission field and continued to work on. And then after a while, I think it was about almost 2 years, I got a call back from Chuck, and he said that the symptoms had returned and he wanted to know if they could stay in the house again. We said, of course, we would love to have you here. We'll take care of you. Just come right on back. We'll have everything ready for you. So they came back, and then we began a long process. I think it took almost 2 years of Chuck becoming, they had to have surgery. The surgery left him with all kinds of other consequences. He ended up in a wheelchair, and all of us are praying and praying and praying for another healing, another healing. Well, one day Chuck called me, and he took me, I went to his home, he went to the house, and he said, Bud, God has shown me that I'm not gonna be healed again. I'm going to be with the Lord. And I didn't want to hear anything about that. I still believe we were going to have a miracle. He said, no, you need to understand. I believe God is going to take me. And he was in his early 40s. And it was really hard to hear him talk like that. And he said, I would like for you to do my funeral service. And I didn't want to even talk about that. And he insisted. He got really tough with me. And he said, will you do my funeral service? And I said, I will, if you pass away. And he said, I've already written out an outline for the service. And he handed it to me. And he said, I want to explain it to you. And it had 3 points. And it's hard to talk about. He said, pain is for purity. And I said, explain that? And he said, no, but you don't understand. When you have real pain, I mean off the charts pain, everything that is kind of non-essential, you get rid of it. It's too much. You can't think about anything else. He said, so pain, in a very strange way, it can purify your thinking. It can make you get right down to the root of what is really important. And so he was explaining that to me. He said, tell the people that at my funeral service. Second thing he said, healing is for humility. And I said, okay, explain that. And he said, Bud, when I was healed, I thought about all the other people that I had seen during my battle with cancer who had not been healed. And I kept thinking, why me? Why me? And he said, Bud, you'd think that I would be so proud of my faith, and God gave me that because of my faith. He said, no, it's not like that at all. I said, when you get a real healing from God, what you think is, why me? I don't deserve it any more than anybody else. I didn't understand that very well, but he explained it to me. And then the last thing was, he said, time is the treasure. He said, Bud, the only thing that I regret is I just won't be here for my kids' weddings, and I won't be here to meet my grandchildren. And boy, he says, man, time is the treasure. Whatever you do, make sure you use the time wisely that you have with the people that you love. Well, he died, and wow, what a hard thing to deal with for his family, for everybody, for his children. And we did the funeral service, and man, the building was full of people. Many pastors came. Well, he was such a respected man. And so I did exactly what he told me to do. And I told everybody, these are his words to you. And those words had a tremendous impact on a lot of people, and especially on me. And so I think what I'm saying to us today is this. If you are going to love in this world, then you can't avoid the risk of it, but you can overcome it. Yeah, sometimes you're going to get a healing, and sometimes you're not. But I saw somebody who looked so much like Jesus to me, because Jesus was living, again, the drama of taking the risk to love people in this world. And it marked me forever. When Jesus warned us, he said, if you do what I do and you identify yourself with me in this world, there'll be people who will react against you and they will hate you, but they're not really hating you, they're hating my Father and me. So in a sense, it's a privilege to be able to say, I suffered and ran the risk because I was identified with Jesus. Would you think about these 3 things? Pain is for purity, healing is for humility, and time is the treasure. Would you think with Jesus about that? And when it comes time for you to run the risk of loving people, remember that a lot of people have already run that risk. And the first one who did it for us was Jesus. And then he calls us to carry our cross and do the same thing. Would you think with Jesus about that? I think it will be good for you. I know it's been good for me. God bless.